I think it was when I was 5 or 6 years old, my first attempt of public speaking. And it was my grandfather who motivated me. He wrote the speech for me, and we have parish family unit in our parish. So the whole parish is divided into many family units, and we used to gather once a month in somebody's house, and the young people had the opportunity to sing and speak. My grandfather, I remember, pushing me to get up and give a talk, and he wrote the talk for me. My first experience, I was a lot of stage fright. I was actually literally shivering. And then grandfather said, no, just get up, do it. So I stood there and I was doing this. And at that age, I was wearing a trouser. And I clearly remember this because it was very traumatic. And my fly was down. And you could imagine all my friends sitting in front of me. Hi, Bonnie, we can see you. So everyone was laughing at me, not because the way I was speaking, but probably because my fly was down, they had an entertainment. And later I found out why they were laughing. And it was so horrific for me. I said to myself, no, I will never go up and do it again. But then my grandfather made me do it again and again and again and again. And I am very grateful that he did it. It was one of my weak part when I got up to, in the first 5-6 years of my speaking in schools or competitions, a couple of times I won prizes for public speaking, but most of the time I came back with a lot of horrible comments. Like, are you too loud? And you probably say the same thing. Last week, somebody came up to me and said, you shouting at us, are you? I said, I'm not offended because I heard this all my life. And then I am too much this. And I knew that I may not be a very civilized preacher. And I may not be good at maybe very public, political, diplomatic sort of preaching. But I knew when I met God's love in my heart, I knew my weakness will be taken by God and transformed it into the gift that He wanted to use. He will make my weaknesses and He will turn them into gift. Not for my benefit, because the most times I got discouraged was about my preaching in all my priesthood. People will come up to me, you're too loud. And I have seen people walking out of the church because I got up and preached. And there is one time, one lady said to me, oh, the mass was peaceful today. We had the priest and he was just very quiet. I said, all right, okay. But because of that, I never took pride in my gifting to communicate. Because I knew it is the same place I have experienced heartbreak. And I have literally cried about my style of communicating, thinking that, God, you could have given me some other way of communicating style. And because of that, I always take a lot of courage in the power of the cross, which can transform weaknesses, pain, into something beautiful to serve the Lord. And in my priesthood, I don't take pride in my priesthood because I know my priesthood stems from a very painful reason. I grew up as a middle child. And my firstborn, Tony, and then the youngest is Sonny. They were the favorites at home. Dad was close to my brother. My mother was close to my sister. And I am the middle child. The tennis ball doesn't owned by anyone, but all will hit each other. So the only time I rested like a tennis ball is when I was out. So naturally, I was very close to the church. And I looked at the priest. He's getting free food. He gets invited to people's house. He gets the biggest part of the meat. He gets the best ice cream. Everyone, and he doesn't have to pay. And people give him free attention. Even if he's a horrible man, people still feared God's fear. I thought, well, if I don't have attention in my family, I know where to get it. So I joined the seminary. I acknowledge this because one of the theologian, he's a Jesuit priest, he said 100% of the people choose to become religious or priest with 50% wrong reason. 100% of the people become religious or priest with 50% wrong reason. And the 50% wrong reason in me was that I just wanted to get out of my family and get attention, appreciation. And the easiest way to negotiate, which I knew as growing up, could be priesthood. But what happens through the formation in the seminary, this 50% wrong reason will be purified and we become 100% good reason. At least we acknowledge our weaknesses, our pain, and we ask God's grace. I know you call me into something really noble. Now I come here with 50% wrong reason, 50% good reason. Lord, make me a good servant, obedient, humble, acknowledging my sinfulness, at the same time acknowledging the giftedness I carry within me. When a priest can do that, that priest can be a healing priest, a priest who can understand pain, a priest who can bring God into our lives. And this is what God says to the people of Israel. When they are so afraid of the snake, the serpent who bit them, God asked them, make a bronze snake and lift it up and look at it and you will be healed. It's very strange. In other words, God is asking, lift in front of your own eyes what scares you the most. Lift up your weaknesses in front of you. Lift up your cross in front of you. Lift up the things that bites you, puts you down in front of you. Look at it. And by exposing it, you will be saved. And I will explain you in my humble ways how that is done. Now, cross, what the gospel is saying, when the Son of Man is lifted up on the cross, when we look at the cross, we will be saved. And the meaning of the word salvos is healing. We will be healed. Because upon the cross we see every sum of weakness, every brokenness, every pain, every rejection, every loneliness, every isolation. This is the sum and substance of every pain in the world. And when we look at that, if God can transform such a tragedy into triumphant glory, when I look at the cross, I don't look at my weaknesses, but I look at the power of God who can transform death, who can transform pain, who can transform lifelessness into something so joyful. So I bring my weaknesses, I bring my brokenness, and I ask the Lord, would you come and work in my life? There is a word we know, vulnerability. Those places we are a bit vulnerable. And it's the word called valna, means wound. And God always works when we are weak. If I am so gifted as a priest or as a principal or as anyone, as a teacher, if I am a gifted person, I may take pride. I'm so good. It's because of that. But it is in our weaknesses we are so humble. We know that that is the one thing I struggle. We know that places people attack me. when I hear criticism, when I hear sarcasm, in that place I am crumbling, I am vulnerable. It is the exact vulner, it is the exact wound if we allow God's grace come in and we see the power of God work within us. God did not come to the world to condemn us. What is condemnation? Condemnation and judgment are very different. Judgment, God does judge us because there is right, there is wrong, there is darkness and there is light. What is condemnation? Once we pass the judgment, then we pass a sentence. That is condemnation. In God, there is no sentencing. He may judge you. By the pure fact that God is light, we may aware become that there are things we lack in our lives. But He will never sentence us. He always invites us. Come to me, I will give you rest. Come to me, your weakness will be power with me. Come to me, and I will give you life. He comes to save us. He comes to heal us. Amen.